The night was still, but the air crackled with an electric tension that sent shivers down the spine. In a remote field, under a blanket of stars, something unimaginable was unfolding. Trees, tall and ancient, began to twist as if guided by an unseen force, aligning in perfect synchrony, their branches bowing toward a glowing orb that hovered silently above the ground. No sound accompanied this eerie spectacle, only the mesmerizing glow that pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm, drawing the gaze of anyone unfortunate enough to witness it. What could cause such a strange phenomenon? Was it a miracle, or something far more sinister lurking in the shadows? As the trees swayed, a chilling realization dawned. They were not just moving. They were responding to something that should not exist. In that moment, the line between reality and the unknown blurred, leaving a haunting question lingering in the still night air. What had awakened in the darkness, and what did it want from those who dared to look? The night was still, but the air crackled with an electric tension that sent shivers down the spine. In a remote field, under a blanket of stars, something unimaginable was unfolding. Trees, tall and ancient, began to twist as if guided by an unseen force, aligning in perfect synchrony, their branches bowing toward a glowing orb that hovered silently above the ground. It was as if nature itself had been choreographed for an audience that would never arrive. The darkness wrapped around the landscape like an old, heavy cloak, thick and suffocating. A gentle breeze whispered through the leaves, a soft caress that belied the unease settling in the pit of one's stomach. The scent of damp earth mixed with the faintest trace of something metallic, sharp like blood, lingered in the air. The trees, usually stoic and unyielding, now seemed alive, their trunks contorting subtly as they leaned into the glow, a silent offering to an unseen deity. The vastness of the field was punctuated by the solitary barn in the distance, its silhouette a dark shadow against the night sky. The dirt road leading to it wound through the tall grass, unpredictable and full of secrets. Occasionally, the sound of a distant animal broke the silence. A rustle in the underbrush, a low hoot of an owl, or the soft rustling of something that felt out of place. Yet, these sounds faded into oblivion, overshadowed by the mesmerizing glow that pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm, drawing the gaze of anyone unfortunate enough to witness it. As the orb hung there, suspended in the air, it cast an eerie light that seemed to warp the very fabric of the night. Shadows danced erratically, and the contours of the land morphed into a surreal landscape. It was a scene torn from the pages of a nightmare, yet it held the allure of a dream, beckoning those who dared to look closer. The trees swayed, their leaves shimmering as if sprinkled with stardust, yet the sound was muted, drowned out by an oppressive silence that felt as thick as fog. In the distance, a figure emerged from the edge of the field, drawn inexplicably toward the phenomenon. It was Jacob, a local farmer known for his skepticism, a man who had lived through the whispers of the town that spoke of strange happenings in the fields. He had always dismissed them as mere folklore, stories spun from the minds of those too idle to seek the truth. But tonight, the air felt different. It thrummed with an energy that ignited a primal fear deep within him. As he moved closer, the ground beneath his feet seemed to vibrate, a subtle pulse that resonated through his bones. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end as he fought the urge to turn back, yet curiosity propelled him forward. What was this light? What did it want? The trees, now his only witnesses, creaked softly as they twisted, and he felt a shiver dance along his spine. It was not just the cold of the night. It was something more, something ancient and powerful. The moment Jacob stepped into the open field, the sensation of being watched washed over him. It was an unsettling feeling, one that instilled an instinctual urge to flee. But he couldn't. He was rooted to the spot. Transfixed by the sight before him, the orb pulsed softly, casting a mesmerizing glow that illuminated the ground in an ethereal light, revealing a pattern in the grass, geometric shapes that spiraled and twisted, almost hypnotic in their design. It was as if the earth had been etched with symbols forgotten by time, secrets long buried now resurrected under the gaze of the orb. The trees continued their eerie dance, bowing and swaying as if they were participants in a dark ritual, performing for an audience that existed only in the shadows. Jacob squinted against the light, searching for something, anything, that could explain this phenomenon. Yet, it was as if the air itself conspired to keep its secrets, wrapping them in layers of mystery that were almost palpable. Suddenly a low hum reverberated through the air, a sound that felt more like a vibration coursing through his body than a noise. It was neither musical nor mechanical, but rather a primal resonance that tugged at his very essence. The animals that had been his constant companions in the fields were nowhere to be seen. Their absence heightened the tension, and he realized the depth of his isolation. The feeling of being the only witness to something so monumental was both exhilarating and terrifying. A creeping dread settled in as the hum intensified, and with it came a sense of urgency. Jacob glanced at the trees, their branches now twisted in unnatural angles, pointing toward the orb as if beckoning him to join them. He could feel their silent call, a whisper that sent chills cascading down his spine. The air thickened with anticipation, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. In that moment, the line between reality and the unknown blurred. The glow of the orb pulsed, and with each beat, it felt as though something deep within the earth stirred awake, something that had been lying dormant for centuries. Jacob's heart raced as he took a step back, the realization dawning upon him that he was not just an observer. He was part of something much larger, a cosmic dance that transcended human understanding. As he turned to leave, the ground beneath him trembled slightly, and the trees creaked ominously, their branches swaying in a rhythm that seemed to echo his heartbeat. It was a warning or perhaps an invitation. The question lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. What had awakened in the darkness, and what did it want from those who dared to look? The night stretched on, filled with the weight of unspoken fears and the promise of mysteries yet to unfold. The night enveloped the rural landscape like a thick, dark shroud, punctuated only by the faint glow of the orb that hovered above the field. Jacob felt the weight of the silence pressing down on him, a silence so profound it echoed in his ears. The wind, usually a gentle caress across the cornfields, had stilled, leaving behind a stillness that felt almost sentient, as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The familiar creaks and rustles of the nighttime wilderness had faded into an unsettling quiet, amplifying the low hum that seemed to resonate from the orb itself. He stood there, rooted to the spot, his senses heightened, each sound and sensation magnified in the oppressive stillness. The ground beneath his feet was cool and damp, the earth exuding a musty aroma that mingled with the scent of fresh soil. In the distance, the silhouette of the barn loomed like a sentinel, its weathered wood dark against the night sky. The shadows were deep and thick, pooling in the corners of his vision, creating an illusion of movement that played tricks on his mind. Yet, amidst the thickening darkness, Jacob could feel it, a pulsing energy that vibrated through the air, drawing him closer to the orb. It was as if it beckoned him, whispering secrets that were just beyond his grasp. He strained to hear, to understand the message hidden within the sound. But all he could discern was an unsettling amalgamation of frequencies that hummed in harmony, yet struck discord within his chest. The sensation sent a shiver down his spine, igniting a primal instinct to flee, yet he found himself unable to turn away. As he gazed at the orb, it flickered, momentarily illuminating the field in a ghostly light. In that fleeting moment, Jacob caught sight of something on the ground, an intricate pattern etched into the soil, geometric shapes that twisted and turned in ways that defied reason. It was a design that seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as the orb, a connection between the earth and the celestial. The shapes were mesmerizing, drawing him in with an irresistible allure. But there was something deeply unsettling about them, as if they were a message from a time long forgotten, a language he could not comprehend. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as he took a step closer, the grass crunching softly beneath his feet. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to escape the magnetic pull of the unknown. Yet something deep within urged him to press on, to uncover the truth behind this cosmic phenomenon. He felt the weight of the air shift, a subtle change that raised the fine hairs on his arms and sent a chill coursing through him. The trees swayed gently, whispering secrets in a language he could not understand, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers toward the orb, as if they too were drawn to its enigmatic presence. Suddenly, a sharp crack pierced the stillness, slicing through the tension like a knife. Jacob's heart raced as he spun around, scanning the darkened field for the source of the sound. The night seemed to hold its breath, the silence so profound that he could hear the pounding of his heart echoing in his ears. The creaking of the barn in the distance added to the symphony of unease, and he could have sworn he saw shadows darting between the rows of corn, fleeting figures just out of reach of his sight. A deep sense of dread settled over him as he turned back toward the orb, its glow now brighter, casting elongated shadows across the ground. He could see the geometric patterns more clearly now, twisting and turning, revealing new shapes that seemed to morph before his eyes. What had once appeared as simple lines and curves now felt alive, pulsing with a rhythm that resonated deep within him. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once, a reminder of how little he truly understood about the world around him. He felt a presence, as if he was being watched, and the thought alone sent a wave of panic through him. He glanced behind him, half expecting to see someone standing there, but the field remained empty, save for the shadows dancing in the moonlight. Yet the sensation lingered, a prickling awareness that made him feel vulnerable and exposed. The orb pulsed again, its light flickering like a heartbeat, and for an instant, he thought he saw figures within its glow, blurred images that shifted and faded before he could comprehend them. The hum grew louder, enveloping him in a cocoon of sound that vibrated through his very bones. It was a call, a summons from the depths of the earth, or perhaps from the stars above. Jacob's breath quickened as he felt the ground beneath him tremble again, a subtle movement that resonated beneath his feet, as if the earth was awakening from a long slumber. He took a step back, the instinct to flee grappling with the allure of the unknown that held him captive. With each passing moment, the atmosphere thickened and Jacob's mind raced with questions. What was this orb? What did it want from him? The air was charged with a palpable energy that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. He could feel the weight of the night pressing in on him, a darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own, urging him to delve deeper into the mystery that surrounded him. As the orb's light flickered once more, a thought crossed his mind, a fleeting realization that perhaps he was not alone in this cosmic puzzle. Somewhere beyond the veil of darkness, others may have felt the same pull, the same compulsion to uncover what lay hidden beneath the surface. But as he stood there, alone in the depths of the night, a chilling question lingered. Were they drawn to the light for answers, or were they merely moths to a flame, oblivious to the dangers that lurked in the shadows? The night stretched on, thick with tension, each minute feeling like an eternity. Jacob's heart raced, caught in the throes of a fear that was both foreign and familiar. The pulse of the orb resonated in his chest, and he knew in that moment that the secrets of the night were far from over. Something awaited him in the darkness, something that would shift the very foundation of his understanding, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the precipice of a revelation that would change everything. if only he dared to take the next step into the unknown. Jacob stood rooted to the spot, the weight of the night pressing heavily upon him. The air around him crackled with an energy that felt almost sentient, an unseen force that beckoned him forward while simultaneously urging him to retreat. The hum had transformed into a resonant vibration, a low thrum that seemed to synchronize with the very rhythm of his heartbeat. It was as if the earth itself was alive, breathing, and he was but a fleeting thought in its vast consciousness. The darkness stretched infinitely, swallowing the edges of reality, and as Jacob squinted into the void, he felt the shadows shift, dance, and pulse with an unsettling life of their own. The familiar contours of his surroundings, the old barn, the twisted oak trees, blurred into silhouettes, morphing into shapes that defied recognition. Each sound echoed ominously, the rustle of leaves transforming into whispers, the distant croak of a frog morphing into a foreboding chant. He could almost hear the night itself speaking, its voice laden with secrets that clawed at the edges of his sanity. Then, from the periphery of his vision, he caught a flicker, a glimmering light that darted behind the barn before vanishing into the darkness. It was swift, almost too quick to be real. His pulse quickened, and an ice-cold shiver traced its way down his spine. Was it merely a trick of his mind, or was something out there, watching him, waiting for him to make the next move? The very thought sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through him. As he strained to listen, the hum morphed into a multi-toned harmony, an ethereal symphony that resonated deep within his chest. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once, filling the air with a sense of longing that clawed at his soul. The ground beneath him thrummed in response, a subtle but undeniable shift that felt like a heartbeat echoing from the depths of the earth. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to abandon the mystery that tugged so insistently at his curiosity. Yet the allure of the unknown was intoxicating, a siren's call that ensnared him in its grip. He could feel the cool wind wrap around him, carrying with it the scent of damp earth mixed with something metallic, sharp, and unfamiliar. It was a scent that ignited a primal fear within him, a reminder that he was not meant to be here. Not in this moment, not in this place, where the veil between the known and the unknown fluttered so tantalizingly thin. The shadows seemed to stretch and contract, weaving intricate patterns that hinted at the unfathomable geometry governing the night. Suddenly, the vibration escalated, and with it, the lights in the distance pulsed brighter, illuminating the field in a ghostly glow that silhouetted the surrounding trees. Jacob's breath hitched as he noticed patterns in the crops, lines and shapes that were unmistakably geometric, yet disconcertingly organic. They spiraled outwards from the source of the light, forming a design that held a strange beauty, one that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. A chill crept into his bones as he pondered the implications. What had created such a phenomenon? What force had the power to manipulate the very fabric of life itself? His heart raced as he recalled the stories he had heard from the old-timers in town, the whispers of strange occurrences, of lights dancing in the fields, of shapes appearing overnight with no explanation. But those were just tales, right? Fables spun to frighten children and entertain drunks at the local bar. Yet, here he stood, on the precipice of a reality more terrifying than any story, and the undeniable truth washed over him like a wave. This was not just a coincidence. Something was happening, something that transcended human understanding. The night deepened and the air grew thick with anticipation. Jacob felt the pull of the orb, a gravitational force urging him closer to the source of the light. His mind raced with questions, doubts, and fears. Were the stories true? Were they warnings or merely the ramblings of frightened souls? The hum crescendoed, filling his ears, and he took a step forward, the ground shifting beneath him, as if it too was urging him to come closer. to witness the inexplicable. But with each step, the tension escalated. The weight of unseen eyes bore down upon him, a sense of being observed from the shadows. He paused, an instinctive shudder coursing through him. The primal fear that perhaps he was not just a witness to this cosmic event, but a participant in something far greater. A game played by forces he could not begin to comprehend. The thought terrified him, and yet he felt an inexplicable yearning to understand, to uncover the truth hidden within the night. The silence around him deepened, punctuated only by the distant rustling of leaves and the rhythmic pulse of the orb, which now seemed to beckon him with an intensity that was both inviting and repulsive. Jacob's breath quickened, each inhalation steeped in the electric tension of the unknown. He stood at the threshold of something extraordinary, an event that could redefine everything he believed about reality. And yet the shadows loomed larger, whispering doubts into his ear. Was he prepared to face what lay ahead? Could he unravel the enigma of the night, or would he simply become another tale? Another lost soul swallowed by the darkness that thrived just beyond the light. With a final glance at the flickering orb, Jacob took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the cosmos pressing down upon him, and stepped forward, drawn into the heart of the mystery that awaited him, where answers and horrors intertwined in a dance as old as time. The night shattered with a sudden, piercing brightness as Jacob stepped closer to the orb. It pulsed rhythmically, a heartbeat that resonated within the very marrow of his bones. The ground around him seemed to vibrate in harmony with the light, sending tremors through the earth that whispered secrets only the night could hear. Each pulse emitted a low, almost imperceptible hum that wrapped around him like a shroud, filling the air with an electric charge that crackled in his lungs. He felt the air thicken, a palpable force that smothered the usual sounds of the countryside, the rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the subtle creaks of the barn settling under the weight of the night. It was as if the world had paused, holding its breath, waiting for something monumental to unfold. Shadows danced and flickered at the periphery of his vision, taunting him with their intangible presence, and he felt an urge to turn back, to retreat into the comforting cocoon of familiar fears rather than confront the unfathomable. But the orb pulsed again, a surge of light that momentarily illuminated the field around him, revealing a pattern in the tall grass that sent chills racing down his spine. There, etched into the earth, was a formation, geometrically perfect, yet alien in its design. Lines intersected at angles that defied the logic of nature, creating a web of shapes that seemed to hum with energy, drawing his gaze like a moth to a flame. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been woven anew, a tapestry of cosmic significance unfurling at his feet. As he knelt to examine the pattern, the air shifted, carrying with it a metallic scent that tinged his nostrils. It was a smell he couldn't quite place, sharp and unnerving, reminiscent of burnt wires or something more primal, something that spoke of ancient machinery buried deep within the earth. The grass beneath his fingers felt alive, vibrating subtly against his touch, each blade a conduit transmitting the energy that pulsed from the orb. He could almost hear it whispering to him, its voice a delicate thread weaving through the silence. Then came the sound, a low, resonant thrumming that seemed to rise from the earth itself, melding with the heartbeat of the orb. It reverberated through his being, igniting every nerve ending with a sense of urgency. The vibrations crescendoed, wrapping around him, filling him with a mixture of dread and exhilaration. It felt as if the ground were speaking, recounting tales of the cosmos, of ancient beings who walked among stars and now lingered in the shadows of his world. Jacob's heart raced, each thud echoing the rhythmic pulse of the light. He felt that he was on the brink of discovery, yet simultaneously teetering on the edge of madness. The air was thick with a sensation he could neither name nor understand, a weight that pressed upon his chest, demanding acknowledgement. The orb seemed to swell, a beacon of truth that both illuminated and obscured, casting long shadows that twisted and coiled around him like serpents. He looked back toward the farmhouse, the distant glow of its windows a reminder of safety, of the mundane life he had always known. But here, in the presence of the extraordinary, the familiar felt like a distant memory, a mere illusion compared to the reality unfolding before him. The orb beckoned, and with it the promise of answers that could unravel the threads of his existence, revealing truths hidden in the dark corners of the universe. But as he leaned closer, the light flickered, almost as if it sensed his intentions, and a deep chill settled in the air. Jacob felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end, an instinctual warning that he was not alone. The shadows shifted once more, coalescing into forms that danced just beyond the reach of the light, and he could no longer shake the feeling that something was watching him, something ancient, something beyond comprehension. The hum intensified, a cacophony of sound that reverberated through him, filling the silence with an alien melody that resonated deep within his soul. He closed his eyes, allowing the vibrations to wash over him, and in that moment, he felt the boundaries of his reality blur. Images flooded his mind, visions of stars colliding, of galaxies spiraling into oblivion, and of beings whose forms transcended the earthly plane, their intentions shrouded in layers of enigma. Jacob's heart raced, a primal fear clawing at the edges of his consciousness, urging him to flee. Yet, the pull of the orb was too strong, a gravitational force that merged curiosity and terror into a singular pulse that throbbed in time with the light. He opened his eyes, the orb now a swirling mass of colors, a kaleidoscope of energy that seemed to beckon him closer. The patterns in the grass shifted, responding to his presence, as if the earth itself was alive, yearning for him to comprehend the depths of its mystery. He reached out, fingers trembling, ready to touch the surface of the unknown. In that moment, the world around him faded away, and all that remained was the orb and the swirling patterns etched into the earth. The silence stretched, heavy with the weight of anticipation, and just as his fingertips grazed the light, the ground trembled violently beneath him, and the world exploded into chaos. The orb flickered and dimmed, the patterns dissolving into a haze of energy that surrounded him, engulfing him in a cocoon of uncertainty. He felt a surge of power, a rush of adrenaline that coursed through his veins, but just as quickly, it faded, the light extinguishing, plunging him back into the oppressive darkness of the night. The ground beneath him quaked, and he stumbled, disoriented, as the air thickened, pressing in from all sides. In that instant, Jacob realized that he was not merely an observer. He was at the very epicenter of something unfathomable, a phenomenon that transcended human understanding. As the silence crashed back over him, he was left gasping in the void, the shadows closing in around him, and the hum of the orb now but a distant memory. What had he awakened? What had he chosen to confront in his quest for the truth? The answers lay just beyond his reach, swirling in the darkness, waiting to reveal themselves. But at what cost? Jacob stood at the precipice of his own fear, reeling from the chaos that had just unfolded. The night enveloped him, thick and suffocating, as if the very air had conspired to draw him deeper into a web of uncertainty. The orb, once a beacon of light and promise, now lay dimmed, its energy dissipating into the darkened expanse around him, leaving only a lingering echo of its presence. The silence that followed was profound, a vacuum that swallowed the sounds of the world, making even the slightest rustle of the leaves seem thunderous in its absence. He strained his ears, desperate to catch a hint of what had just occurred. There was nothing, only the oppressive hush, broken occasionally by the distant croak of a frog or the flutter of a startled bird. But beneath that silence, a vibration thrummed through the ground, subtle yet insistent, like a heartbeat that pulsed in time with his own. It wrapped around him, a shroud of unease that made the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. The field around him, once a familiar landscape of golden wheat and wildflowers, had transformed into a surreal tableau. The patterns left in the grass were no longer just shapes. They were ancient symbols, etched into the earth as if crafted by hands that knew the secrets of the universe. Jacob felt an overwhelming urge to understand, to decipher the language of the land. But fear clawed at him, whispering that some mysteries were not meant to be unraveled. He took a hesitant step backward, the crunch of dried twigs beneath his feet, a stark reminder of his presence in this alien place. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the edges of the field, yet the shadows seemed to deepen, pooling like ink in the corners of his vision. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, shifting and swirling, watching him with an awareness that sent chills racing down his spine. He glanced toward the farmhouse, its silhouette against the night sky, a fortress of normalcy in a world that had suddenly become unrecognizable. But even that seemed tainted. The windows, usually warm and inviting, now appeared to be vacant eyes, staring into the abyss of the field, reflecting nothing but the void. Jacob's thoughts spiraled as he recalled the stories whispered among the townsfolk. Tales of strange happenings, of lights in the sky, and of the land speaking in tongues that only the most attuned could hear. Had he ventured too far into this enigma? The air shifted, carrying with it a scent he couldn't quite place, a metallic tang that clung to the back of his throat and was foreign to the earthy aroma of the rural landscape. It was unsettling, like the aftermath of a storm, leaving behind an unsettling reminder of the chaos that had just erupted. Jacob's pulse quickened as he strained to listen again, and in that moment he thought he heard something, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very core of the earth. It was not a sound he could identify, but it resonated deep within him, an unsettling lullaby that beckoned with an irresistible allure. Panic began to bubble beneath his skin, a primal instinct urging him to flee. He turned, his breath quickening, but his feet felt rooted to the ground, as if the very earth was holding him in place. The hum grew louder, more insistent, and he could feel it vibrating in his bones, an ancient rhythm that seemed to call out to him from the depths of the universe. In that moment, he understood that he was no longer just a visitor in this field. He was a part of something vast and unknowable. Then, without warning, the ground beneath him trembled again, a violent shudder that sent him sprawling to his knees. He gasped, his hands digging into the earth, feeling the pulsating energy surge through his fingertips, a connection to something greater than himself. The world around him blurred as he fought to regain his composure. But in the depths of his mind, the fear intensified, coiling tightly around his heart. What had he awakened? What secrets lay buried in the soil, waiting to be unearthed? The vibrations morphed into a cacophony of sounds, a blend of whispers and echoes that seemed to wrap around him like a cloak. Jacob squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block out the chaos, but the noise surged, threatening to consume him. He could feel the presence of the orb lingering, a remnant of the light that had once captivated him. But now, it was a memory, a ghost of what could have been. And he was left with nothing but the palpable dread that pressed against him. As he opened his eyes, he noticed a flicker of movement at the edge of the field. Shadows danced, twisting in a way that felt almost intentional, as if the darkness itself were alive and aware. Jacob's heart raced at the thought of what might be watching him, hidden just beyond the veil of night. The stories flooded back, tales of beings that transcended human understanding, their intentions cloaked in layers of enigma. Was he now part of their narrative? An unwitting participant in a cosmic drama that played out among the stars? Desperation surged within him, and he pushed himself to his feet, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He had to get back to the farmhouse, to safety, to normalcy. But as he turned to flee, a sudden chill swept through the air, freezing him in place. The hum halted, the vibrations ceased, and an unnatural silence fell over the field once more. And then he saw it, a flicker of light, distant yet impossibly close, illuminating the darkness with a soft, inviting glow. Jacob hesitated, torn between the primal urge to escape and the overwhelming curiosity that had driven him here in the first place. What lay beyond the light? Was it a signal of hope, or an invitation to plunge deeper into the unknown? The choice hung heavy in the air, and as he stood at the crossroads of fear and fascination, the shadows lengthened around him. In that moment, he realized that the answers he sought were just as terrifying as the questions themselves, and the night was far from over. As dawn broke, the pale light of morning uncovered the remnants of the night's strange occurrences. Jacob felt the weight of the silence pressing in around him, a silence that seemed to thrum with the aftershocks of what he had experienced. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, as if the world held its breath, waiting for something unnameable to unfold. He stood at the edge of the field, the freshly mowed grass still glistening with dew, but it felt as though the very earth beneath him had transformed overnight. The patterns etched into the ground were nothing short of extraordinary. They were not mere circles, they were complex formations, intricately woven designs that twisted and turned, defying explanation. Jacob knelt down to examine them closely, each line sharp and precise, as if an unseen hand had traced them with care. The smell of the earth was mingled with a metallic tang, a scent that sent shivers racing down his spine. It was the smell of something ancient, something that existed beyond the confines of human understanding. He could hear the soft rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze, the only other sound being the distant call of a mourning dove. Yet, beneath the tranquility, there was a pulse, subtle yet undeniable, that resonated through his bones. It was a vibration, rhythmic and almost musical, like the heartbeat of the land itself. Jacob felt it tugging at him, drawing him closer to the center of the formation, where the light had once flickered like a candle in the wind. With each step he took, the world around him began to distort. The geometry of the field seemed to warp and bend, creating an illusion that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Shadows flitted at the corners of his vision, teasing him with the possibility that he was not alone. The whispers from the night before echoed in his mind, a haunting melody that intertwined with the vibrations, words he couldn't quite decipher, yet felt compelled to understand. He reached the heart of the formation, where the design was at its most intricate. The plants surrounding him had bent at impossible angles, yet they remained unbroken, resilient against the forces that had shaped them. Jacob traced the patterns with his fingers, feeling a warmth radiate from the earth, as if the ground itself was alive and aware, responding to his touch. It struck him then, the realization that this was no ordinary phenomenon. This was a message, perhaps even a warning, carved into the fabric of reality by forces beyond comprehension. As he stood there, the weight of an unseen gaze pressed down upon him, a sensation that sent a wave of dread coursing through his veins. It was as if the very air shimmered with energy, an electric current that crackled in the atmosphere. Jacob turned slowly, scanning the horizon for movement, for any sign of life, but found only the desolate stretch of farmland and the looming presence of the distant woods. The isolation felt suffocating, wrapping around him like a shroud, amplifying his anxiety. His thoughts raced back to the stories he had heard in town, tales woven with fear and fascination. People spoke of ancient symbols, of cosmic visitors who left their mark upon the earth. But as he stood amidst the otherworldly patterns, he grappled with the gnawing doubt that had begun to take root in his mind. Was this truly the work of beings beyond human understanding, or was it a natural occurrence that defied explanation? The moment was shattered by a sudden rustle in the underbrush, a sound sharp and jarring against the backdrop of the quiet morning. Jacob's heart skipped a beat, adrenaline surging through him once again. He instinctively stepped back, his eyes darting towards the noise, pulse quickening. Was it the wind, an animal, or something else entirely? The shadows thickened, and an unsettling tension filled the air, one that hinted at an imminent revelation, or perhaps a deeper terror lurking just beyond sight. He felt the urge to run, to escape the uncertainty that enveloped him, yet he remained frozen in place, caught in the tension between fear and curiosity. The whispers grew louder, swirling around him like a storm, urging him to stay and uncover the truth hidden within the intricate shapes before him. It was a choice he had never anticipated, a crossroads that demanded courage in the face of the unknown. As he turned back to the patterns, the sunlight began to shift, illuminating the designs in a way that revealed their true complexity. What had once appeared to be chaotic now seemed to pulse with meaning, each line and curve whispering secrets that only the earth could hold. Jacob knelt once more, his heart racing as he felt the vibrations intensify beneath his fingertips. The sensation was intoxicating, a mixture of fear and exhilaration that left him breathless. But just as he thought he was beginning to grasp the magnitude of what lay before him, a shadow flickered in his peripheral vision. Drawing his gaze away from the patterns, he turned sharply, heart pounding in his chest. But there was nothing, only the vast expanse of the field stretching endlessly in all directions. The chill of dread seeped into his bones. He was not alone, and he could feel it in the air. In that moment, a realization struck him with the force of a lightning bolt. This was not merely an event. It was an invitation, a call to confront the mysteries that lay hidden in the shadows, to dive deeper into the unknown. The thrill of discovery mixed with the fear of what he might find. The patterns beckoned him, whispering secrets of a world that was just out of reach, and as he stood at the edge of understanding, he knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger. The question lingered in his mind, echoing like the distant sound of thunder on the horizon. What awaited him at the heart of the mystery? And as the shadows danced and the whispers grew louder, Jacob felt an unshakable pull toward the unknown, an inexplicable desire to uncover the truth that had been waiting for him beneath the surface of reality. The only certainty he had was that the day was far from over, and the answers he sought were lurking just beyond the edge of light. Jacob stood there, immersed in the surreal beauty of the patterns sprawled across the field, yet an unsettling tension hung in the air like a thick fog. The sun, now dipping lower in the sky, cast elongated shadows that danced across the geometrical designs, morphing them into something almost alive. Each contour pulsed with an unspoken energy, as if the earth itself were breathing beneath him, sharing secrets that had lain dormant for centuries. A soft rustle echoed through the stillness, the sound slipping between the whispers of the wind. Jacob's heart raced, the rhythm echoing like a drumbeat in his ears. He turned toward the sound, his pulse quickening. But once again, nothing greeted him but the oppressive emptiness of the field. The world around him felt both familiar and foreign, the scent of earth and grass mingling with an undercurrent of metallic tang that sent shivers down his spine. It was as though he stood on a precipice, teetering between the known and the unknowable. The patterns beneath his fingers thrummed with an intensity that seemed to sync with his heartbeat, each vibration resonating within him, awakening something deep and primal. He closed his eyes, allowing the sensations to wash over him, a heady mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through his veins. The wind shifted, carrying with it a distant melody that was both haunting and beautiful, a tune that felt like it had been composed in another time, another place. In that moment of stillness, the air grew heavy with anticipation. Jacob felt a presence, an unseen observer lurking just beyond the periphery of his vision. It was a feeling that clawed at his instincts, urging him to flee, yet simultaneously drawing him closer to the mysterious patterns that lay before him. The shadows deepened, twisting and stretching as the last remnants of sunlight surrendered to the encroaching night. With a sudden jolt, a realization gripped him. This was not just a phenomenon, but a conduit to something far greater. A bridge to the cosmic mysteries that surrounded him, waiting to be unveiled. He was on the verge of something monumental, and the implications of that knowledge sent ripples of fear through his mind. What if he was not meant to understand? What if the truth he sought was too vast, too unfathomable for a mere mortal to comprehend? The grass beneath his knees felt cool and damp, grounding him in a reality that was slipping away. A low hum began to resonate through the air, a sound that seemed to vibrate within the very marrow of his bones. It was a call, a beckoning from the unseen, urging him to take that final step into the unknown. The patterns shimmered, their shapes twisting and shifting as if acknowledging his hesitation. They were alive, and they wanted him to engage, to delve deeper into the enigma they presented. As he opened his eyes, the twilight enveloped him, casting an ethereal glow across the field. The last vestiges of daylight faded, and the first stars began to pierce the deepening indigo sky. But it wasn't the stars that captivated his attention. It was the shapes. They seemed to pulse with an inner light, revealing intricate designs that spiraled and coiled like a living organism. Each line was a story, each curve a whisper of the past, beckoning him to listen closely, to uncover the truth hidden within. Yet, Jacob felt a gnawing dread creeping in. The air grew thick with an unnameable tension, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting for him to make a choice. The world around him became a tapestry of sensory overload, the caress of the evening breeze, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of unseen creatures in the underbrush, all conspiring to heighten his awareness, to pull him into a deeper understanding of the cosmic dance that played out before him. And then, just as he began to comprehend the enormity of the moment, he noticed the tiniest shift in the atmosphere. A ripple passed through the air, like a stone thrown into a still pond, and the patterns before him flickered as if responding to an unseen force. His breath caught in his throat as the realization dawned upon him. He was not merely an observer but a participant in this ancient ritual, a thread woven into the fabric of a greater mystery. But before he could fully grasp the significance, a fleeting image crossed his mind, a glimpse of something that felt both familiar and alien, a shadow that darted just beyond his sight. He whipped around, a primal instinct urging him to confront whatever lurked in the darkness. But again, he was met with nothing but the vast expanse of the field, the solitude pressing in on him like a suffocating blanket. The sensation of being watched intensified, an electric charge that raced across his skin, prickling with urgency. Jacob was caught in a liminal space, teetering on the edge of revelation, yet feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He had come seeking answers, but now he wondered if the pursuit itself was leading him into a labyrinth of horrors he could scarcely fathom. In that moment, a soft, almost imperceptible sound broke through the night. A low, resonating tone that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath him. It was not just a sound, but a vibration that resonated with the core of his being, a melody that spoke of ancient secrets and cosmic truths. The patterns shimmered in response, their geometry shifting as if alive with the knowledge of ages. Desperation clawed at him. He needed to understand, to reach out and grasp the elusive threads of meaning that danced just beyond his fingertips. But as he leaned closer to the patterns, his heart pounding in rhythm with the pulsating vibrations, he felt the ground shift beneath him, a tremor that sent him reeling back. And then, in a flash, a single detail caught his eye, something he had overlooked until now. A small, circular object nestled among the grass at the edge of the formation, a stone that glimmered with an otherworldly sheen. Jacob felt drawn to it, compelled to uncover its significance. As he bent down to retrieve it, a sudden chill enveloped him, as if the very air had thickened, wrapping around him like a shroud. He lifted the stone, the cool surface sending a jolt of energy coursing through him. It felt familiar, a connection to something greater, but with that connection came a deep sense of foreboding. This wasn't just a stone. It was a key, a piece of the puzzle that could unlock the mysteries he had stumbled upon. Yet, as he held it in his palm, he couldn't shake the feeling that it came at a price he was yet to understand. As the shadows deepened and night fully embraced the field, Jacob's heart raced with the weight of his discovery. The stone pulsed with a rhythm that synced with his own heartbeat, whispering promises of revelation and danger alike. He could feel the air crackle with energy, a silent thunder that foreshadowed the chaos that lay ahead. Would he dare to explore the depths of this mystery, knowing that he might not return unchanged? The uncertainty loomed like a storm on the horizon, but Jacob felt a fire ignite within him, a relentless curiosity that propelled him forward into the unknown. He stood at the precipice of discovery, staring into the abyss with a heart full of questions and a spirit ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The night was alive with possibility, and as he ventured deeper into the shadows, he couldn't shake the feeling that the answers he sought were just beyond his reach, waiting to be unveiled in the most unexpected of ways.